Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to review the SVS Micro 3000 subwoofer. I am pretty excited to have this little guy here because I'm a big fan of small subwoofers, especially ones that sound good. So I'll take you through the review the same way I generally do, where I tell you about some specs and standout features, what it sounds like, some comparisons, and then we wrap it up. Except in this video, I'm also going to tell you how to, and I'm going to show you how to remove the grill. I know some of you guys came here and watched this video just for the grill removal, so we're going to do that right now. Please do keep in mind the grill was not designed to be removed, so you do want to be careful. I'm using the smallest screwdriver I have. It's essentially an eyeglass screwdriver, and I've wrapped just a little bit of tape around the shaft so that no metal comes in contact with the gloss finish. So, oh, by the way, there was no difference in sound whether I had the grills on or off. This is like purely for aesthetics. My guess is most of you guys that want to take your grills off probably have the black model, because I think the black model would probably look pretty cool with the grills off. But what you're going to do is you're going to look for a spot where you can fit the screwdriver in the grill and just pry just a little bit. You're only looking for a few millimeters of movement. You know, you don't want this thing's not going to just like pop off with one pull. Once you get a few millimeters of movement, move on to another area, and just you want to kind of repeat that. Some areas you're not going to get any movement at all. It's just going to be in, and that's okay. If you don't get any movement, just kind of give up and move to a different spot. Like here, I'm not getting any movement. I'm going to try underneath, getting a little bit there. Let's go back to where we started on this side. A little bit more. Let's see if we can get a little bit more on the top, and then we should be good. I think we're good. So I've incrementally moved it out just a few millimeters at a time, and you just want to get enough of an edge where you can kind of just put your fingertips on it and just lightly lift. And you want to make sure to rotate a little bit as you go, little by little. You're not putting much force on this because, again, it wasn't designed to come off. And if you don't get any movement, that's okay. Just, you know, move to another side. Like this side right here, this is like in pretty good right now. That's okay. I'm just going to keep working it slowly. There we go. See, look, it's come off almost all the way here. So with just a little wiggle maybe. No, it doesn't want to come off with a wiggle. I'll be honest, guys, I've done some takes where it came off just like that. So I think it's actually pretty cool that this is taking a while, because for some of you it might take a while and you might find yourself getting frustrated. You might want to rip it off. Don't. Look at me. Do it like I am. I'm being patient. You can be patient, right? Just going to keep working it. Oh, there we go. Cool. And if I can be patient, guys, so can you, because I'm filming a video, so I want to look cool and do it quickly. But as you can see, it took me, you know, maybe 2 minutes or so. So it wasn't difficult. You just have to be careful. You don't want to damage your $800 subwoofer or scratch the nice finish. The cool thing is they did include like a little felt liner around the grill. So it's not going to like scratch up the finish as you remove it. I thought that was a nice touch. And here we've got a nice, beautiful SVS driver with the SVS logo across. I think that's a nice touch, especially considering the fact that the grills weren't designed to be removed. The fact that the driver is branded. Awesome. Thank you, SVS. Okay, let's talk about some specs and standout features. We've got a 21 hertz in-room extension, 800 watts RMS, 105 decibel, you know, is how loud it can play. We've got a ton of peak power. SVS subwoofers generally have triple their RMS wattage in peak power, which is very impressive. It's got a cell phone app that lets you adjust everything and anything you would want to adjust in a subwoofer. Slope, frequency cutoff, polarity, PEQ, room gain compensation, user definable profiles, etc. It's awesome. And one of the coolest things, though, in my opinion, is that the amplifier here, this might look small, but this was actually lifted from the more expensive SB3000. And if you're wondering, well, like, why is it so small? It's actually not. It wraps around the bottom. So they did have to make some alterations, as you can see, to make this 800 watt RMS amplifier fit this tiny cabinet by making it essentially like wrap around underneath. So good job there, SVS. It looks clean. I love the look. So those are the features. with the cell phone app, in my opinion, being the most standout feature. And the coolest thing here is like, SVS isn't the only company in the world with a cell phone app. Like Bowers & Wilkins has one, but it's only available on the DB3D and up, and that starts at $3,000, whereas for SVS, it's available on every single one of their subwoofers, even the most affordable SP1000 Pro, that's only $500. So that is super cool. And I'll be honest, SVS's app is it's like pretty good. I'd say it's better than most. Anyhow, I digress. So what does it sound like? Well, SVS to me is known for a few things, at least to me, in my experience. I have kind of an expectation when I get a SVS subwoofer in this room, because I've owned a few of them, I've reviewed a few of them. And there's three things they've all done really, really well, and I was curious to see if this one could too. And those three things are gonna be dynamics for days, just brute force, aggressive and violent attack, and SPL capability are usually pretty good too, you know, varying obviously depending on the model and how much power they have. This definitely has all three of those things. It had that attack exactly as I was expecting it. The first time I noticed that, just immediacy and ability to pressurize a room with attack, is when I owned the SP3000. Once I got that thing set up, I played the Young Jeezy song Put On, and the third note in the intro just pressurized my room so aggressively and so violently. I was like, whoa. And I'd heard that song a million times with a lot of different setups, but with an SVS subwoofer, it was unlike anything else. It just put a smile on my face. And this was able to do that as well. Now, I'm not saying this can play as loud as an SP3000. No, but I'm saying its attack, the brute force aggressiveness that SVS subwoofers are known for, immediacy to pressurize the room, and their dynamics are all here, front and center, very good at those things. That is, I would say, a serious achievement, because it's so small. I mean, like, I don't have the biggest hands, guys. Like look at this thing. Like, it's tiny, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's great at those three things. Some other things like integration was good. I was able to get it integrate very well. Whether I was listening to music, playing video games, or watching a movie. I did watch the Mortal Kombat movie using this subwoofer. Now, I can't comment on infrasonics like the Edge of Tomorrow intro, because a tiny subwoofer like this isn't going to be able to produce anything like 18 hertz and below. And if you were expecting it to, I would say adjust your expectations a bit. This guy, again, is tiny. So yeah, anyhow. While watching Mortal Kombat, like the punches, the music, there was all like, that movie honestly had like a lot of bass going on. And this delivered it like no problem. It was pretty fun. But I will say, when I watch movies, I don't watch them that loud. I keep the volume around 75 dB with 80 dB or so peaks. So, you know, maybe keep that in mind if you listen like louder. Remember, like, this is a smaller sub with 105 decibel capability, and you could get a pair to have them play louder, reinforce the lower end more, widen your stage, and have an overall larger sense of scale. Let's talk about sense of scale. Sense of scale, pretty good. This, when it was set up and I was playing it, it did not feel like I was listening to a small subwoofer. A lot of times smaller subwoofers, their sense of scale is smaller, and larger subwoofers have a larger sense of scale. This, like, if I closed my eyes and you made me like guess, I would kind of guess it was just like a medium to like normal size subwoofer playing in my room. It was pretty good at that. Speed and its ability to transition through like transients, dynamics, super good, as you'd expect from 8-inch drivers. You know, they can move fairly quickly, turn on a dime, and so on. Bass note distinction was fairly good below 50 hertz. Above 50 hertz, I didn't get a whole lot of information, and that's kind of going to come down to the design. Generally speaking, when you put a driver in a cabinet that is so small, you do lose some of your mid bass. You a lot of times lose low end extension as well, but DSP kind of brings all of that back in. Now, there is a PEQ for it, so if you're a mid bass lover, you can play with that and bring some of that mid bass back up. Personally, I set up all my subwoofers around 50 hertz or so, so I didn't care about that. And for what it's worth, I consider mid bass anything between like 60 and 80 hertz. It's mid-bass, kind of like an audiophile word that's made up. There's no real definition for it, so there's mine, I suppose. And anything over 100 hertz, I don't even consider bass, honestly. That's just like lower mid-range to me. But yeah, so let's see. What other areas people care about? Metrics, descriptors. I think I've talked about all the ones that matter to me, honestly. Let's talk about comparisons. Let's start with comparing the 3000 micro to SVS's own subwoofers. I think that's a great place to start. Let's talk about this compared to the SB1000 Pro. I haven't reviewed that yet, but I do have one here. The SB1000 Pro is going to be larger, so even though it has less power and is cheaper, it is going to be able to play louder. So if outright SPL is your #1 priority, you'd probably be happier with the SB1000 Pro. Where the Micro is going to take the edge is going to be, one, obviously its size. Its gloss finish is standard, which is pretty cool, even though, you know, it does cost more. It is going to have a whole hell of a lot more power, so I do think it is a little bit more dynamic. And so while the SB1000 Pro extends lower in its spec, and I did find that to be true as well, I did find the 3000 Micro, in my room at least, to have a little bit more balls, if you will, between 25 and 30 hertz. Even though its extension spec isn't as low, and it did not extend as low as the SB1000, its lowest extension section was stronger. It was weightier, it seemed more controlled, more articulate, just more powerful overall compared to the SB1000. And that didn't surprise me because this is more expensive, and I did expect that, not simply because of the price, more so because the driver size to voice coil ratio is going to be more in line with what it should be for great performance like that. Whereas the SB1000 Pro has a fairly small voice coil at just 1.5 inch compared to that 12-inch cone. That ratio is, you know, it's not going to be as good as the 8-inch with however size its voice coil is, even if it's just a 1-inch, honestly. So that's that comparison. Yeah, it's pretty simple there and straightforward. I would say the biggest argument to make for the SB1000 Pro is you could buy two of them for $1,000. Actually, there might be a dual subwoofer discount, I don't know. Either way, the pair is dangerously close to a single one of these. So again, if SPL output is your main focus, you're putting together a theater rig, or you just like to really rock out, might be happier with the pair of the SB1000s. Let's talk about this compared to the SB2000. They're about identical in price. So the SB2000 and this are going to be fairly similar. The SB2000 is going to have a little bit more control than the SB1000 in those lower frequencies that I talked about, where this was better than the 1000 Pro. But compared to the SB2000 Pro, those lower frequencies are about the same in terms of overall like control, authority, articulation, and so on. The SB2000 Pro will extend lower and play louder than the 3000 Micro. So again, if outright SPL is your #1 priority, and you like everything else I've said about the subwoofer so far, go with the SB2000 Pro. They're the same price, and in this scenario, between the SB2000 and the Micro, the only reason to choose the Micro is the smaller size. And we can kind of continue saying this as we go up the SVS chain. All subwoofers are going to extend lower, play louder, and so on, starting with the 1000 all the way up to the 16 Ultra, right? Even the one with the most similar name, the SB3000. Some of you guys might think, because this is a 3000 series sub and has the same amplifier as the SB3000, that this should play as loud. No, that is not the case. The SB3000 has a 13-inch driver and a much larger cabinet. I believe its SPL spec is 128 dB, whereas this is 105. So this is not a tiny SB3000 with all the same capabilities. The SB3000 extends a lot lower, has a whole lot more authority down low, and it's a little bit more expensive as well. So it should have more capability, and it does have the physical advantage. Essentially what I'm getting at here, guys, is any brand, I don't care who it is, X, Y, Z, if they've got a sub around this price that's larger than this, it'll probably extend lower and play louder, okay? There is only so much you can do with a small cabinet. However, that aside, this plays plenty low and plenty loud. It really does. So if you've got a space constraint And I'm guessing you do if you're eyeballing this for purchase, because that's the only reason you'd be looking at this over SVS's own 2000 or 3000 model, for example. I'd say you're not making much of a compromise, honestly. My guess is a lot of people are going to buy a pair of these. That's what I think, because they're so small. You can fit them, just, tuck them away. You won't even really notice them. And when your eye does look at them, they're beautiful. So it's like, no problem. I can't imagine they'd challenge the wife acceptance factor at all. So this is great. And I will say, again, for the size, I would consider it a no compromise design. Now, like, technically, are there some compromises? Yes, SPL. Anytime we shrink a subwoofer, we're going to lose some SPL. But aside from that, I mean, it's got all the same sound characteristics as SVS's like larger subwoofers. And to me, that's like mission accomplished. Good job, SVS. All right, let's move on and talk about some other comparisons. A lot of you guys want to know how this compares to the KC62. Here we go. But before we go, let's remember one thing. Price difference. So I want you all to play a game with me. Picture the car you own right now. Now picture a car that costs double. It's probably better at everything than your current car is. That's normal. It costs double. That's generally how the world works. When an item costs twice as much as its competitor, and they're both current models and both companies are good at what they do, usually the double the price model is better, and that's why it's double the price. So, with that said, the KC62 is $1,500. It has an extruded aluminum cabinet. It has magnesium drivers, for God's sakes, and 1,000 watts RMS. The drivers are a little bit smaller, being dual 6.5s. However, it can extend lower. It's going to blend a little bit better. Its textures are going to be better. Its mid-bass performance is better. It's overall better in just about every area. And it should be. It costs twice as much money. You can literally buy a pair of these for $1,500. A single KC62 is $1,500. So if you're eyeballing just a single sub and you've got the $1,500 and you need a tiny one, don't be cheap. Get the more expensive one, right? But I do think some of you guys, what you really want to know is like, well, should I buy two of the micros or one of the KC62s? This is where it gets interesting, because as great as the KC62 is, there are a few arguments I can make for a pair of micros. So the KC62 has an active DSP. And what that is for is to protect those little tiny drivers from just killing themselves when you turn up the volume. So while the KC62 has killer extension and just insanely good extension for a subwoofer period, the active DSP starts to roll it off as you ask for more and more volume. The larger your room is, the more you're going to notice this, the quicker it's going to happen as you turn up the volume. Whereas the pair of micros will not do that. The pair of micros, the extension you will get, period. Sorry, subwoofer, I just tapped it. And as you turn up the volume on the micros, you will just continue to get more and more and more. However, with a single KC62, you could get a little bit less as you turn up the volume. So that's argument one for the micro. Argument two for the pair of micros versus a single KC62 is dual subs is better than one in a few areas. And that's going to be like staging, sense of scale, imaging, and things like that. So for those two reasons, I think a pair does make a lot of sense. Also, the pair of micros will play louder overall than a single KC62. 1v1, they have about the same SPL capability of 105. So again, I don't think a 1v1 makes sense. It's double the price. You wouldn't look at a Mercedes S560 and then be like, how does it compare to a Rolls Royce? It just doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Such a weird comparison. So again, I don't think it makes sense to do a 1v1, but a 2 micro versus 1 KC62. I can see a lot of people cross-shopping that, and it's tough. You know what I mean? Because if you're a lower volume listener, like 75 dB, and you're almost never going above that, I think you're probably going to be happier with a single KC62. Most people don't listen that low. Like me personally, I listen that low no matter what I'm doing. Music, movies, video games, all 75 dB. Anything louder is too loud for me. When I go to the movie theaters, I usually leave because it's too loud. I've done that on more than one occasion. Or Like, you guys are gonna start judging me here, but like, honestly, I carry a pair of earplugs in my car because most stuff is too loud for me. Back to the freaking subwoofers, and enough about me though. If you listen above 75 dB to just any kind of content, I'd probably inch towards the Micro 3000 pair for that more consistent experience and the benefits of the dual subwoofers. So that's that comparison out of the way. If you have any questions beyond that, ask in the comments, I'll try to help you. There's not a whole lot of other comparisons I can give you because of the size difference. Any other comparison I can give you, if it's a larger sub by another brand, I'm essentially going to say the same thing. Assuming it's in and around the same price, it's going to extend lower, play louder. Most larger subs will. I've told you what this thing sounds like. I've told you about its features. I've given you some comparisons. Essentially, this is a great subwoofer for anyone with space constraints. If you don't have a space constraint, like I said, get SVS's own SB2000 Pro instead. It's a fantastic subwoofer, will extend lower and play louder. But if you're sick like me and aesthetics are almost more important to you than the sound, this is the best looking subwoofer SVS has ever made. And for a lower volume listener like me, I would totally get one of these over a larger subwoofer because to me, aesthetics, most important thing, number one in building your sound system. I don't care how good something sounds. If it's ugly. I will not own it personally. And this is like so good looking. I am curious to see if SVS is gonna, size this thing up and, give us like a dual 10 version or a dual 12 version. Who knows? Anyways, I don't have much else to say and I'm starting to lose my voice, so I'm gonna go ahead and shut the fuck up from here on out. But if you have any questions or if there's anything I didn't cover, ask in the comments below. And until next time, later.